The world of numismatics offers us a lot of wonderful stories. Today's story is about the Olathe hoard, and it's one of the most interesting discoveries of our time. Now, the hoard was found in 2009 in a place called Olathe, Kansas. Now, the hoard was made up of 25,000 brand new Morgan silver dollars. They were still in the treasury bag. Now, these treasury bags hold 1,000 coins each, and there were 25. They were found by a family who was sorting through the belongings of a local bank owner after he passed away. Now, what makes this discovery special wasn't the coins themselves, but it was how the coins got there. See, they weren't buried or forgotten about in the usual ways. Decades earlier, the 1950s, 60s, a bank had taken these coins as a guarantee for a loan, but somehow they moved from the bank's records to the person's personal collection. Interesting. Today, we're going to be talking about the Olathe hoard and how it starts from when the coins were made in the 1800s all the way to when I purchased one the other day. Now, we're also going to look at the legal side of money, the discovery, and how Kansas law and unclaimed property might have applied. Now, it's a key point in that it's unclear how accurately the coins were handled. Experts have checked the coins, they've looked at them, and they've even helped sell them, turning this privately funded find into a very well known part of coin history. So join me today as we talk about the Olathe hoard and show how valuable physical items can be made more special with a really good story. So let's talk about the context of the Olathe hoard first. So it was a huge event. And again, we've got multiple coins here, so I'll be showing you a couple coins here. We'll be flipping these back and forth. It was a huge event. 2009, 25 bags, each with 1,000 brand new Morgan silver dollars, were found in a place called Olathe, Kansas. Now it looks like Olaf or Olathe, but it's Olathe. Now the discovery happened while a family of local bank owners was settling the gentleman's estate after he passed away. 25,000 is a fairly large amount. So finding this puts it up there with other American hoards. But you want to understand how they kind of compare? Well, let's talk about ones that were quote unquote buried or hidden. The super collector stories, the buried treasure stories, the Saddle Ridge hoard. I mentioned that the other day when we were talking about the gold coins and the 1,427 gold coins between the years of 1847 and 1894. Unfortunately, I don't have one of those to show you. But what I do have is a Redfield hoard shown here. Now, the Redfield hoard, and you can see the video up in the upper right hand corner, was a giant collection of over 400,000 silver dollars gathered by one man with a fondness for peaches. You want to know more? Go check out that video. Now, he died in 1974, and they were found in kind of a hidden room. Now, both of these have the classic buried treasure, as I said before, that super collector feel. But the Olathe hoard was a little bit different. See, these coins weren't hidden away in the ground. They weren't stored away in secrecy. Well, they kind of were. But what makes this one special is the fact that they were tied up in a business deal. Now, see, these coins were taken by the bank as a security for a loan that happened in the mid 1950s. The difference changes from a simple discovery to an interesting item when we look at the business and legal history of the coins. Originally, they were an asset for a business, but then they ended up in private hands. We'll get to that in just a minute. But first, let's talk about the various coins. Now, you'll see here that I have some Morgan silver dollars. And the Morgan silver dollars ran between the years of 1878 to 1904, and then a singular run because of the Pittman Act in 1921. Some of them are Philadelphia, they have no mint mark. Some of them are from New Orleans, featuring the O mint mark, as seen here, or S mint mark from San Francisco, like this one you see here. Now, after they were made, millions of these were sent from the mint to the U.S. Treasury. The coins were stored in large sealed canvas bags with 1,000 coins in each bag. And it's believed that these were the original bags, never had been opened. Because back then, silver dollars were an extremely valuable way to hold wealth. We see this in the various other hoards and stackers of the time. They were storing their wealth in silver. Now, the fact that the bank took a lot of these coins is another important part of the history, and we're going to talk about the move to private ownership. What's confusing about the timeline is how they went from banks' property to private ownership. The fact that the coins were never sold and ended up with the bank owner himself suggested, yeah, something strange happened. It's possible the loan was never paid back and the bank simply just didn't try to get the money. Or maybe the bank decided the loan was a loss and the owner privately took or bought the coins. Well, it was most likely a private deal and most likely not written down. Laundry, anyone? The collection was a pretty hefty find, especially when we're talking about the world of numismatics. Well, if you look at these particular coins, you'll see that they are both certified by NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Company. This is one of the top grading companies, and they played a very important role in proving that the coins were real, giving them a quality grade and putting them in the special holders, as you'll see here with these labels. These labels confirm that they are in the condition that they are in, and it creates a permanent record of where they came from. So you take these coins out of this holder, and they're no longer associated with the Olathe hoard. It's important for you to remember that. Now, another thing about this is it creates and allows for something called a smart marketing plan. See, by putting these into NGC holders and labeling it with a story, you give a clear and trustworthy history to the potential buyer. And it's this clear and potential history, the mystery of the story, that makes this piece the real historical event. So what are we looking at as far as prices? Well, it kind of depends. If you're looking at the 1885 O and MS64 condition, you're looking at about 140 to 175 bucks. If you're looking at the 1887 Philadelphia, you're looking at approximately $200. Now you'll see here that I have an 1886S, and the 1886 goes for about $145 to about $165. So they carry quite the premium in relation to MS64 grades that are not a part of the hoard. But there's still the question about the legal and the financial side of this hoard. See, the discovery of the Olathe hoard meant that it still had to be settled under Kansas law. Now, they had to bring in the estate under Johnson County, and they had to determine whether or not there was going to be a public rebuttal. But remember earlier on, I said this was going to be pretty hush-hush, that they handled this with great care. It wasn't a private collection. It was hidden away. It was a business asset. So this meant that the Kansas law had to go under something called unclaimed property. Now, this meant that they had to have somebody publicly come back and say, hey, those belong to me or my family, because they're considered abandoned property. And after a while, they put the information out. There's no public fight, no legal ownership, no contention over this particular set. And at that point, it defaulted to the family. So while we know a lot about the timeline of the Olathe hoard, there are still some parts of the story that are, well, a mystery. The names of the bank owner have never been made public, probably purposeful. We want to protect the family and the legal trouble from public attention. There was a lack of public records. There was some significant private handling, some underhanded deals, perhaps. We're not exactly sure of the details of how they moved from the bank's official records to private ownership. It's pretty unusual in the event history, and it's not unforgotten. This hoard has a permanent place in numismatic history. It's more than just a story about finding money. It's a great example of how the money of a physical item can be turned into a private discovery. And that private discovery, with the right marketing and with the right aura of mystery, can turn it from a collection of coins into a permanent and special place in the world of coin collecting. All right, folks, this is Frosty. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like this stuff and you want to know more about discoveries and hoards and things like that, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and let me know that you want to see more like this. If you have a specific coin that you want to learn about, for instance, I have the 1931S here. If you want to know more about key dates in Lincoln cents or Morgan dollars, maybe you want to know more about things like ships. Like you guys know, I love my ships. This is the German Weimar. Maybe you want to learn something more about stacking and collecting, and you want to know more about something like Geiger and the history of Geiger Edelmetalle. If you want to learn this information, reach out to me, let me know, and I will put videos together to meet your needs and your interests. All right, folks, be well, be blessed. Love you all. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you in the streams. Take care.